Here's another finding zeros problem. So again, a 0 is what x could equal that would make y equal to 0. So I'm going to set y equal to 0, and then I'm going to try to factor. First thing I always look for is there a greatest common factor? So if I look at 2 and negative 18, I see those are both even numbers, which means I can definitely take a 2 out of both of these terms. I also see there's x's in both these terms. There's x times x here, that's x cubed, and there's just one x there. So I can just take one x to the outside. If I divide both terms by 2x, I'm going to get x squared in the first term, and I'm going to get negative 9 in the second term. And I can check my answer by multiplying the 2x back into the terms in the parentheses to see if I get the polynomial I started with, which I will. So now that I've got my factors, I just set my factors. Oh, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Before I set my factors equal to 0, I got to check to make sure I've factored completely. And in this case, I have not. And here's how I know I haven't factored completely. It's because of the squared here, x squared. When you have a quadratic, that's where the highest exponent is a 2, you probably can factor more. If this was linear, I would be done factoring. But since it's squared, I can factor even more. So how do you factor x squared minus 9? Well, I already factored using the GCF. I already took the biggest common factor I could out of my polynomial, which means there's not going to be any more common factors to take out of this. So if I've already taken out a common factor, the greatest common factor, but I still am looking to factor, and there's 2 terms, the only option left to me is difference of squares. So I'm going to use difference of squares. I'm going to use difference of squares. And I need to remember the difference of squares formula, which is a plus b, a minus b. That's a plus b, a minus b. The only question is, what's my a and what's my b? Well, my a is whatever squared would give me the first term. And in this case, x is what could be squared that would give me the first term. And so a is x. What would give me the second term if I squared it? Well, the second term's 9, so 3 would have to be the thing that if I squared it would give me that second term. So I found my factors for x squared minus 9, which means that the final fully factored form is going to have that 2x in it, but it's going to have 2 more factors that come from this x squared minus 9 term. It's going to have x plus 3 and x minus 3. 3 factors now. 3 factors, and that makes sense because I started with a cubic, which had a 3 exponent. It makes sense that I'd have 3 linear factors now. So I'm going to set each of the factors equal to 0, and then I'm going to have 3 equations to solve. If I'm looking at the first one, to get x by itself on one side, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And I'm going to get x is equal to 0 divided by 2 is just 0. On this equation, I'm going to subtract, that should be subtract both sides by 3. And I'm going to get that x is equal to negative 3. And in the last equation, I'm going to add 3, and I'm going to get that x is equal to positive 3. So the zeros, the x values, the things that x could be that would make y equal to 0 are 0, negative 3, and positive 3. 3 answers to this question.